Today on Politics Unplugged, Governor Hobbs wants artificial intelligence to cut wasteful government spending. So what's on the chopping block? The FBI snatched Arizona election records as it expands its investigation into the 2020 election. Plus, why are Republicans fighting a court order to start funding public school construction? The panel gives us their takes now on Politics Unplugged.
And good evening. I'm political editor Dennis Welch. This is Politics Unplugged, and Governor Katie Hobbs says she wants to cut wasteful state spending, and she wants to use artificial intelligence to identify it. So what's that going to look like? Now, here to help us out and understand all of this, Amy Edwards Holmes, the woman the governor has tapped to lead this new effort. I want to thank you very much for being here. And before we get into the details of all this, I am curious, how does somebody get this job? I'm sure it's more than checking out the one ads and filling out a resume and telling somebody, hey, I'm a real go-getter. What's your resume?
Thank you for having me today, and happy to share more about my background and this exciting new initiative from the governor. I've been working for about 25 years actually on government efficiency initiatives, the federal, state, and local levels, and working to make sure that the government executes its work in the most efficient way possible, including using technology to do that. And data is a big part of that, and that's been a lot of my background.
Now, has this been in the federal government, or have you been doing this in the state and local levels?
I worked in think tank policy areas like the Pew Center on the states, where I ran a 50-state report card assessing the capabilities of all the states across our country. So that was early in my career. I was also in Congress. I led a task force on government performance there, looking at these same kind of issues and how we can save from the Senate Budget Committee. And then also was at the Treasury Department, standing up all of our Office of Innovation and other things that we were doing there to advance efficiency. And most recently, I came from Johns Hopkins University, where I was the executive director of the Bloomberg Center for Government Excellence, where I trained mayors and other leaders at the local level on how to use data and AI in the best way and most responsible way.
Okay, and so for our viewers, they pay attention to all this kind of stuff when they hear government spending. We're going to cut back on all this. We're going to be using AI and technology to do this. People are going to automatically jump to, this is like DOGE. Yeah. And I'm assuming you're saying this is not like DOGE, not like DOGE at all, because remember, that was a federal government effort led by the Trump administration. It promised to find all sorts of fraud and waste and abuse. It did not live up to the hype. But what do you tell people who are saying, like, look, what is Governor Hobbs doing? Why is she launching a DOGE type effort?
I would say this effort is nothing like DOGE. We might have efficiency in our name, but I think there's a very different approach being taken in Arizona, and one that I think is the right approach. We're engaging our workforce. We're building the capacity of the state to use technology and supporting this amazing workforce that we have across the state. And people, in my experience, are the most important part. The technology's there, you can use it, but you have to build up the capacity to understand it, to manage it, and to use it responsibly. And that's what Governor Hobbs is focused on, and that's what I'm excited to help lead for her across the state.
So what are we looking at target goals here? Like what kinds of numbers are we looking at? And where would the waste and fraud be at? Because I just want to say in this state, it's a very fiscally conservative state. I'm having a hard time seeing like where is the misspending happening.
Yeah. Well, I would agree with you. Arizona has been, kind of focused on a lot of this work over time. We're trying to centralize some of the analysis of what we're spending so that we can look at it at a more granular level so that we can, find those additional efficiencies. We know we're facing tighter budget times, and so we're trying to make sure that we're identifying savings in how we deliver the work in the administrative aspects like procurement and our IT spend, and looking at our real property footprint, and buildings and the amount of use we have today in all of those buildings to make sure we're, using our taxpayer dollars in the right way. So we're really looking at the business of government, how we buy things, how we procure things, and what is our technology footprint? Can we streamline that and consolidate that to get a better value for the state? And that's what we're really looking to do.
Essentially looking for ways to make those types of logistical stuff down there for purchasing and delivering services more efficient.
Exactly. Instead of each agency kind of going and buying their own software and applications that they need, now we're trying to bring them together to do it more in a consolidated way. And there's been some efforts to do that over time. time, but I think our data shows we can do more of it and save more money, and that's what the estimate of our savings is based on, the real data that we've looked at.
And again, just remind you, again, what are we looking at? How much money?
$100 million over the next few years. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And the next few years, 2 years, 3 years.
3
okay.
years, yep.
Okay. And I'm also kind of curious as to will anybody be losing their job? I think there's a lot of state employees be looking at this and saying, okay, there's AI is coming for a lot of jobs. People fear this.
Mm-hmm.
Will there be reductions in workforce?
There's no reductions of workforce as part of this plan at all. In fact, this is about helping our workforce leverage AI as a tool to do their work. There's no plan. That's not the governor's plan. That's not anything that we plan to do. We want to help our workforce understand how to use these to the benefit of their own day-to-day work and the residents across Arizona.
And talk to me a little bit about the transparency. If you're just an average taxpayer here in Arizona, are you going to be filing quarterly reports or regular updates about what you find and how you can change things?
Yeah, we hope we will be providing regular updates. We're in the middle right now of going through all that data and looking at the timing of all of our contracts and working across the state to identify what all of the sequencing of those opportunities are. But yes, we'll be giving updates on the work.
Yeah, and that leads me to another follow-up I had. Where are you at now? You haven't been in the state very long. Yeah. Tell us how long you've been here and where are you at in this process?
We are, well, I've only been here since August of last year. I moved to Arizona from the DC area. But, this work has been going on since before I arrived, of course. And so this analysis was working, and we are, like I said, in the process of working across our communities in the state to work on these savings. We're also about to launch something that I think is really important with this work, is something called an efficiency challenge, where we're going to put out a call to the entire state workforce to submit their ideas. Our frontline workers, those who are leading this work most closely, sometimes have the best ideas. So we're doing a top-down, bottom-up review of our operations to be able to better find cost savings, ways we can improve, and also how we can improve delivery to the residents and make sure that we're doing and using technology to deliver the best quality service.
Okay, and talk to us a little bit, and we can maybe wrap up here. What have you found in the past, given your extensive resume there, where you feel that government is most wasteful in the way it does its business?
I think most of the savings that I've seen are the biggest opportunity for savings are around the procurement and IT spend. And so that's really based on my experience, and I think the governor's leadership and focus here is the right one, because it is where we spend a lot of money. It's a lot of it is managed by external parties, and so making sure that we're conducting right oversight of it and also looking at it to find ways to cut. We've also set a target to ask the IT community to reduce their overall cost by 3 to 5%. So we're asking the private sector to come work with us in the state to stretch every dollar in what we're doing and how we're operating to get the best value. All
right, well, we'll just wrap it up right there. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and good luck with this effort moving forward. But up next, I'll be bringing in our panel to talk about all this week's major headlines, including the federal government collecting election records that have already been audited repeatedly. That's next on Politics Unplugged.
The feds snatched our election records. The clock is running for state leaders to fix school funding, and a major power company faces allegations that its elections are undemocratic. This is your political roundup. The Trump administration widened its investigation into the 2020 election. The Arizona Senate president handed the FBI election records from the presidential election from 6 years ago that Trump has falsely claimed he won. This comes after federal agents seized ballots and other records in Atlanta, Georgia last January. Here in Arizona, a group is pushing to protect mail-in voting in our state constitution. The people behind the Free, Fair, and Secure Elections Act now have about 3.5 months to gather the 300,000 signatures needed to make the November ballot. Speaking of elections, the SRP board elections are underway, and some of their customers are calling it undemocratic because they can't vote. At best, only 55% of their 1.2 million voters are eligible to cast a ballot. And finally, a judge is giving the legislature about 8 months to fix the state school funding system. The order comes after a prior ruling that found the way Arizona has been doing it was unconstitutional. And that was your political roundup for the week.
All right, let's bring in the panel to talk about all of that. Republican political consultant Marcus Dell'Artino and Democrat Don Penich. Thanks for being here. A lot to get through. Let's start with the DOJ, the FBI getting those documents from the 2020 election. Why are we still doing this? This is 6 years ago. Ancient history, right?
I mean, honestly, Dennis, I have a little bit of election exhaustion from this whole thing, but you know, it's clearly that they're going through other states. They've been to Georgia, now they're coming to Arizona. It was a little bit low key. I was a little bit surprised it wasn't more of a story, but it was easily accessible documents for them to go pick up related to the 2020 election.
All right. Is this still an issue with voters? I mean, I read a recent PBS poll that showed that 2/3 of Americans still have confidence in the election system. However, that number did drop by about 10 points since 2024. What's happening here?
Well, exactly stunts like this. To be clear, no valid or new information is going to come out of this. This is being done for one reason only, and it is to manufacture scandal, to manufacture and plant seeds of doubt for the midterm elections by Trump and his supporters. That is what it's for. So let's not fall victim to it ourselves. That's what this is about. And I think for Arizona voters in particular, what we shouldn't lose sight of is that our elections here in Arizona have always been secure, safe, and reliable. And two, that the person who handed over these ballots in this game is now running to hold higher office in this state. So Senate President Warren Peterson is who handed over our personal election data for no reason and wants to be the next Attorney General. Voters should not forget that.
Yeah, and it's also important to point out, I mean, the ballots from the 2020 election long ago have been destroyed as per law. I mean, what kind of records, what do we know about what was seized?
I know nothing about what was seized. I haven't bothered to ask because I have a tough time. Out of all the subjects we're going to cover today, this isn't on my, oh my God, we got to do something list. But I will tell you that because we went through the audit, if everybody remembers sitting down at the Coliseum going through all these ballots, I would assume, and I may be wrong, that there's significant electronic data that was easy enough to turn over on some thumb drives or some disks related to that audit.
And what has been the concern? Because we know that Secretary of State Adrian Fontes is warning county recorders not to turn over this information. What is the concern about turning that over?
There's a lot of personal information. We don't even really understand what the potential uses of this much personal information could be. We don't understand who the government would be handing this information over to when they're done with whatever they're doing with it. So there are far too many question marks for something that is both state and federally illegal to reveal and expose voter information.
Okay. And let's stick with elections. There's a new ballot initiative that just dropped. They need about 300 signatures by July to get on the November ballot. It would enshrine mail-in voting in the Constitution. Your thoughts on this? It seems like if this gets on the ballot, it's going to pass because 80% of voters in Arizona or more, 85%, use this method of voting.
Yeah, you said 300, but I think you meant 300,000.
300,000.
Because 300, I want to put some stuff on the ballot.
We're putting it all on the ballot, baby.
Listen, I think people who have been doing this for a long time realize that Republicans have owned early balloting since it was invented, right? And it has been a tool used effectively, invented by and managed by the Republican Party to the disadvantage of the Democrat Party. So getting rid of it, in my mind, and I'm not very popular within my party for saying this, is a bad idea. And so I'm happy to preserve my right to vote early, and also I thoroughly enjoy voting at home when I have more time on my hands to go through that ballot and be able to analyze it, look at the ballot book. When you're standing in a polling place, you feel a tad bit more rushed to get through it, and I think voting at home and mail at the kitchen counter allows you that opportunity to sit down with your spouse or significant other and have a conversation about the issues that are on the ballot.
All right, and another election we're talking about here is an election that we haven't really talked about before, and that's the election for the SRP board. I've spoken with some customers of theirs who say that they don't feel it's a very democratic method to determine the leaders of this board, who have a lot of say over utility rates and everything else about this. Why is this election getting so much attention this time as opposed to in the past?
Well, for one simple reason, because Charlie Kirk's, Turning Point USA Action has gotten involved, and they've been very candid. They've gotten involved in this very small local off-cycle election because they want to use it as an organizing effort, as a seeding effort for the governor's race later this year and then 2028, which is what anyone who has been involved with organizing, campaigns, that's exactly what you do. It almost matters less what the outcome of, the outcome of this election matters for energy rates, for water conservation, for all kinds of things. But for a political entity like Turning Point, what matters is you're getting all that voter data, you're getting all these people who you could tap as volunteers, you're getting all these phone numbers to harass later when it's time for governor. That's what really matters.
Yeah, and Marcus, why does SRP keep this?
That's the ballot initiative I want to put on. Ban text messaging. I'm sorry.
That would be very popular.
I was going to say, like, Marcus, why does SRP keep this system of voting? It's been this way for a very long time. It goes back to early days of statehood and whatnot. And that election system is only certain people can vote. They have to be property owners first and foremost. And then the amount of property determines how much say you get. So if you have 2 acres, you get the equivalent of 2 votes. When somebody only has a quarter acre, they get a quarter vote. How come SRP has just kept it this way for so long?
Well, Dennis, I should tell you that I represent SRP, so I have zero interest in talking to you about this subject matter. I'm just kidding.
Love that.
Listen, it does go back to like when we were building dams. That's how far this system goes back. And up until now, I don't think anybody even knew that SRP had elections other than the people that got ballots. And what's driving that a little bit, Don talked about Turning Point. The counterpoint to that is the Sierra Club, who's actually been actively working in these elections for some years. And so I think it was inevitable at some point we would get to this precipice where you've got these 2 major special interest organizations sort of brawling over the SRP board. But up until now, I don't think anybody's actually known how these elections work, what they're up against, but I assume that probably there are some discussions happening now.
Yeah, and when you get a lot of attention on an election like this, even the election process itself is going to draw some kind of interest into that. But we're going to have to take a quick break right now, but when we come back, we'll discuss the rest of this week's political headlines. And to get more in-depth on the issues, check out the Politics Unplugged podcast this week. I'm joined by independent consultant Chuck Coughlin. The Politics Unplugged podcast drops every Sunday evening wherever you get your podcast. And let's bring the panel back. Thanks for sticking around here. Let's talk about that big court ruling or order this past week. It's given the lawmakers about 8 months to come up with a big solution to fix their capital funding system for K-12 schools. Because it is ruled previously that the way they're doing it, it's unconstitutional.
Yeah. What? No, I think that was a massively underplayed story. And also, I think 8 months is not very much time for them to come up with billions of dollars. And so I expect an appeal, or actually I think they've already announced they're going to appeal. I'd appeal this as long as I could till I could come up with some sort of financing plan. But keep in mind, folks, raising taxes and fees in Arizona is not very easy. It's super difficult. And I would also point out that, because of tax conformity, because of SNAP, because of Medicaid, because of a bunch of other things, we're going to have a very difficult budget anyway this year. This just adds a lot more pain to it.
Yeah, Marcus is not really optimistic here that they can get something done in a short amount of time. I'm assuming you're just as pessimistic, maybe even more so than he is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's remember that the whole reason we got to a lawsuit and an order from a judge to come up with this payment plan is because of decades of neglect of the funding formula that says Arizona public schools are supposed to be uniform and equal. So you can't have, the roof falling in Queen Creek. That's just not what Arizona students should be having to deal with. And so, to be clear, they don't have to produce the money in 8 months. They have to come up with essentially a payment plan, a funding formula that will allow this to start to be rectified. That said, like Marcus is saying, they haven't come up with anything on far more immediate issues like our taxes do here in a minute, or Prop 123, which is another education funding measure. But, what a lot of education advocates have long said is we're not even asking you to raise taxes, we're asking you to allocate public dollars to public schools, not to a fraud-ridden private school voucher program that costs over $1 billion every single year, for instance. And so there will also be a measure probably on the ballot to reel in the private school voucher program, which should free up funds for things like making sure there aren't sinkholes in playgrounds.
And talk to me a little bit about the politics of the whole thing. Is this something Democrats can use as an issue, saying, hey, look, Republicans are fighting this. They don't want to pay for schools for your kids?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a terrible talking point for the Republicans to come back and say, we're going to appeal this. We don't want Arizona public schools to be safe and secure.
And how do you defend that if you're a Republican?
Well, let me go back here for a second. I would argue you're actually going to have to come up with some sort of revenue to fix this problem, and it's just not as easy as the ESAs. Maybe limiting that might be part of it, but I don't think that's nearly enough to sort of get to this solution, and that's why I would argue it's going to take more than 8 months. If you agree with that it's going to take more than 8 months, then you had no other option than to file an appeal, just so you can get some time behind you to come up with a plan that actually satisfies the judge's order.
So talk to me a little bit. You mentioned how this is going to really hurt the state's finances moving forward. I mean, what are we talking about now? Republicans wanted tax cuts. The governor wanted tax cuts. Should those be off the table now moving forward with this ruling really hanging over their heads?
Well, the tax cuts, I don't think most people understand this, but the tax cuts have been put into place. And we got there because the Department of Revenue has been sending out forms based on full conformity, which is what they've done for 100 years. But this year's different, and nobody told them it was going to be different. And so those forms have gone out the door. For that point, Republicans want full conformity, and so they're okay doing nothing. They don't have to send a bill up because they're getting exactly what they need. I would argue that it'll probably be an issue in the next, I think for Republican standpoint, if Andy Biggs were to be elected governor, he can retroactively go back and fix it and put it in a statute that's full conformity.
That's a big if at this point,
but
right?
It's also a big problem if it's Hobbs that wins re-election. I mean, at some point, it puts her in a spot where she'd have to actually do a tax increase to fix conformity. So it's really messy, really sticky. But right now, Republicans they're exactly where they want to be.
Yeah, and let's just wrap with this. On the first segment, we spoke with the person who's heading the governor's efforts to try to cut wasteful spending. They want to use AI to go ahead and do this, looking at $100 million in savings over the next 3 years. How successful do you think they can be in this? And then she, in how is this going to play politically as she heads into November?
Oh gosh, I mean, I don't know. I talk to a lot of people where anytime you say you're adding in AI, I think for people in like the Phoenix Metro, the first thing they think about is, what is that warehouse that's being built around the corner from me? Is that a data center? If so, no, I'm against it. I don't think people understand this, so I have no predictions on this one.
Yeah, and is the perception going to be that this is going to be another kind of DOGE thing? As much as it is different from DOGE, they're still hearing those keywords, AI, government reductions, and stuff like that.
Well, I think she brings up a valid point that a lot of this can be done, through a streamlining process of the contracts, procurements, technology. I think it will be not even close to what DOGE was, but I think they will be able to find efficiencies. And what's interesting is they don't need any statute change to actually find these efficiencies and execute.
All right. Well, that is all the time we have, but be sure to join us next week for more Politics Unplugged. Good night.